Hi, I'm Jennifer Potter, Executive Director of Be Well Texas. Too many people are struggling alone these days, and alcohol and drug deaths are increasing. We started Be Well Texas to offer high-quality, science-based addiction treatment and recovery services anywhere, virtually or in person. In many cases, there is no cost for treatment or medications if you don't have insurance. Really. Welcome to Be Well Texas. We're glad you're here. Visit bewelltexas.org.
Hello and welcome to March to the Pod, presented by Eternal Roofing. This is season 2, episode number 28, Feeling the Madness, and we're doing it pre-recorded style. We are not live today. We, maybe this pre-recorded thing may take hold a little more often, but I do enjoy the live shows. I really do, because I like that fan interaction. I like getting your comments and answering them. Today, not happening. We'll get back to live shows pretty soon. I'm your host, producer, and the formerly band member of catfans.com. Can't say I'm alone on that anymore. Corey Hogue, the non-FBS insider at Dave Campbell's Texas Football. Find me on your favorite social media channels at Corey Hogue Sports. It's all one word, CORYHOGUE Sports. The knowledge of this show is provided by the creator and manager of Sports of SHSU, all one word, Twitter and Instagram, Chief Operating Officer of the Cat Fund, proud Bearcat alum, Ben Sorrells. And if we look a little tired right now, it's because it's a early morning recording, and Corey doesn't always get out of bed. I'm just saying.
Yeah, you never know what he's going to say either.
No, God, it's even worse in the morning.
Yeah.
It really is. Hey, we got a big show coming at you today. We're going to talk about Lamar Wilkerson's legacy, where he ranks in the history of men's basketball program, and where he ranks maybe amongst the all-time Bearcats. We're also going to talk about the women's basketball program. Are they meeting the standard? Last week we set standards. We're going to talk about is the program meeting the standard? Is it headed in that right direction? And then we're going to talk about Conference USA as a whole. Is it the most underrated men's basketball conference out there? Really good stuff coming today. But first, we need to get you an update on the conference tournament, where yesterday the women's basketball team took down Jax State 55-53. They pulled out one late. It was a back-and-forth affair, and for their efforts, they play today. If you're listening, game's over. You probably already know the result by the time this thing is showing. But they're playing Liberty at 11:30 on ESPN Plus. Top seed in the tournament. Ben, that's going to be a tough game for the Cats today. So I think Ben froze on me there. There we go.
And I went 0-2 against Liberty early or the regular season. Play real close for. Are we back?
Yeah, well,
you got me?
I got you now.
Hello.
You there?
You got me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, I'm good.
I can hear you if you can hear me.
Okay. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so yeah, I can hear you. We're good. Like I was saying, went 0-2 against Liberty in the regular season. Played them tough for about 3 quarters on the road, and then things did not look very good at home when you played them. But that's the reason why they're the number 1 seed. Them in Middle Tennessee were dominant throughout the entire regular season. So it's an uphill battle, but it's March, and you never know what will happen. So we'll see what the results are today.
That was a good win over Jacksonville State yesterday. I thought they showed a lot of, I don't know exactly the word, but a lot of fortitude, I guess it is. Like, they really played well, especially as it got into crunch time late.
Yeah, and that's something this team has really struggled with this year. I think you lost on 3 buzzer beaters or shots in the final 5 seconds, and so was good to see them finish a game. And it's another game where you win with your defense. Fontecone had 7 steals, which I think she was the 3rd player in Conference USA tournament history to record 7 steals in a game, which is super impressive. But it's a game played in the 50s, and that's kind of how they have to win, is with their defense. We know, we've talked about it all year, they don't really have the ability to score the ball, especially without Kayla Kelly out there. So gonna have to lean on the defense, especially today against Liberty.
Defense came through, made 2 big stops there late. Fontecone's 7 steals are the second most in a game in CUSA tournament history. So very well done. On the other side, it did not go so well for the men. UTEP, and you know what? We might want to talk about this a little bit, because a problem that has hit this team throughout all of conference bit them right square in the rear last night, and that's a lack of defense. UTEP was hitting shots 79-65. They advance on past Sam Houston. The men's season is over. What were your thoughts from that game?
Yeah, it was a combination of 2 things. The first one was a UTEP team that typically doesn't shoot the ball very well and relies on their physicality a lot, shot the ball extremely well, especially from 3. And then a Sam Houston team that shot nearly 40% from 3 all season, goes 2 of 19 from 3. And a combination of those 2 things, it's hard to catch up from. And yeah, I mean, you're one and done in the play-in game. So definitely was a disappointing result, especially considering how well they had been playing coming into this game, and the fact that they beat UTEP less than a week ago. But it's March, and if you don't play well, you'll get ousted quickly, and that's what happened.
This one was kind of, like, honestly, it kind of felt like UTEP was going to win, because the game last week was at home. And when you've got the games that close together, it feels like when you're going to prepare, that UTEP maybe prepares with a little more focus, a little more intensity. And when they meet again, they're going to make those adjustments just a week later. And that's hard for a team to readjust to.
Well, and I think another part of it too is UTEP came in on a 7-game losing streak. And UTEP, it was a very good team. They were 15-5 at one point, about halfway through conference play. And then kind of just fell apart. And it felt like they were due for a win, a hot shooting night, some sort of positive regression. And it just happened to come against you. And it's the 2nd year in a row you've been ousted by UTEP. So I don't know if there's anything there, but they beat you in the semifinal last year, and then won the playing game or so. It just kind of felt like UTEP might have been due for a night like they had last night.
Joe Golding's a great coach. That we know, and they played well. Look, UTEP's going to be a problem. I don't know of anybody that wants to play UTEP right now in that tournament, especially if they get confident.
Yeah, well, I know. Yeah, UTEP's an interesting team because defense travels everywhere, and they play just a crazy physical style of play that's going to travel no matter where you go. So they were on that 7-game losing streak, but if they can find a 3 or 4 game stretch where they can shoot the ball along with that defense, they're going to be scary. And just their physicality is tough for anyone, no matter who you are.
That is true. Before we move in to talk about Lamar Wilkerson and where he ranks amongst all-time greats in the men's basketball program, let's get a word in here from our friends over at Eternal Roofing. Eternal Roofing and General Contracting is your choice for integrity work in the Texas Hill Country. Taylor Andrus and crew provide experienced quality roofing services with a mission of roofing with faith, serving with integrity, and sheltering homes in the spirit of stewardship. Don't just take our word for it. Here's what satisfied customer Pamela Allen had to say about Eternal Roofing. They did a great job on our patio roof, came out quick for a quote. The quote was very reasonable, and they started and finished work well and quickly. Not a bad thing to say about Eternal Roofing. Give Eternal Roofing a call today at area code 830-251-5673 or area code 936-215-8539, or you can email them, taylor@eternalroofingtx.com. Big thank you to our friends over at Eternal Roofing for sponsoring this show. We're extremely grateful. We're going to talk some more men's basketball here. Lamar Wilkerson, he had a heck of a week, and he's had a heck of a year, and really 3 years of a career. He's been pretty darn good for Sam Houston.
He has, yeah. And before we jump into the segment, speaking of a great week, I just wanted to give a shout out to the bowling team. We didn't have that in here. It's maybe not a full segment, but won a tournament last week, placed the top 2 finishers out of 180 bowlers at the Fort Worth Regional, 7th in the coaches poll. So shout out to them. They had an incredible week. But yeah,
They're
Lamar
coming
Wilkerson
up on tournament time, aren't they?
They're peaking at the right time. Yeah. So that's something we'll want to look at maybe in a couple weeks. But yeah, Lamar Wilkerson had just an incredible week, averaged 30.5 points per game on the 2 games last weekend. And even though the team didn't play well last night, he had 22 points, did his thing like he always does, and officially became the first Bearcat in Division I history to average 20 points per game in a season. So kind of a cool accolade there to cap off his historic career, even though the team's success wasn't what we wanted it to be. But yeah, just kind of an incredible week from him and an incredible career and season also.
All right, so let's take a look at this. Let's dive in. We know Lamar Wilkerson is good, but how good? So we got to go to the record book, Ben. That's what you got to go to. You got to go look and see how he compares within the records. And so let's start with points. And career individual points, he is not listed on this that you see on the screen. This is the record book that was updated at the end of last season on the Bearcats, on the Go Bearcats website. But Lamar, 1,340 points for his career. That puts him 10th all-time in scoring. I mean, considering that he played in 94 games and 64 starts, 10th all-time scoring, that's a pretty good place to start there, Ben.
Yeah, and most people up there played 4 years. He played 3. Some of them also played 3 as well. But yeah, really good spot there. And I'm sure we'll look at it too. But the scoring in an individual season this last year, he's much higher also.
Yeah, see, when I'm looking at like full-time place, I look at individual points in a season. Let's see, total points this year, 684. That is first in an individual season in program history. And that is important. But when I'm talking like, listen, man, when Corey starts talking top 10 all-time, top 5 all-time, best all-time in the program, I look at the history a lot of times. You got to be ranking up there in a lot of these individual categories.
Yeah, and another one on this list too is made 3-point field goals, and he's 3rd there with 207, and he set the individual single season record there this season as well. So top 3.
We're not done, Ben. We're not done.
I know.
Field goals, he is not in the top 10 in field goals. Field goal percentage, he's not top 10. That's always a hard. That one I don't really put a whole lot into. Here's another one, though. 3-point field goals. He made 207 3-pointers. That puts him 3rd all-time in program history in made 3-pointers. And what is interesting about this, when I look, he is 6th all-time in attempts. So he shot 3-pointers at a 40.5% rate. That puts him 3rd all-time in Bearcat history with a minimum of 150 attempts. I think it's the combination of the outside and inside game that makes Lamar so special for this program.
Yeah, and also he was the team's best defender the last 2 years also. His first year here, Javion May was kind of the lockdown elite defender, but Lamar became that these last 2 years also. He did it on both ends of the floor, and this year in conference play, he averaged just over 37 minutes a game also, which is a lot of minutes in college basketball.
Yes. Yeah, that is especially when you play 40.
Yeah.
When you consider that. Now, we look at free throws, he's not top 10 in free throws or attempts, but in percentage, minimum 150 attempts, 82%, 82.4% for his career so far. And we should also point this out, that this is so far. Like, this guy has an opportunity, if he wants to come back and play another season. If he was to go away right now, if that was his last game yesterday, he would be 5th all-time in free throw percentage. It is important, though, to note that he still has another year of eligibility with this JUCO rule.
Yeah, and so do guys like Josiah Hammonds and Khalifa Sacco and stuff like that. So there's a couple guys on this team that still have opportunities to come back, whether they go pro, whether they come back and play college basketball at all, whether that be at Sam Houston or somewhere else remains to be seen. But yeah, that opportunity is still there and the door is still open.
Yes. Now, he does the other one that here's one. This is also, if you're talking historical perspective, this is important. Minutes played, 2,577 minutes in his career, averaged 34.8 this season, which is just ridiculous. But the 2,577 total minutes puts him 17th all time in minutes played.
Yeah.
So now
go ahead. I was going to say most of the guys on that list above him played 4 years. I know some of the names up there, like a Ryan Bright or a Josh Delaney, stuff like that. They played 4 years, and so for him to get into that top 20 in 3 years is pretty impressive.
Well, it is. It is. Okay, so we're going to come at this conversation now from a couple different ways. First off, where do you have Lamar all-time men's basketball program history if he does not play again next year?
Yeah, it's tough. I think I would probably have him 4th, but there's an argument for him to be probably 2nd or 3rd even. And I can go through my top 3 and kind of the reasoning behind it.
Yeah,
but
do it.
Yeah, so I think number 1 that comes to mind is James Lister. He was at the top of pretty much every scoring list that there was a 3rd round NBA draft pick. And just all the individual scoring accolades seem to go to James Lister. And there's a reason why he was drafted 3rd in the NBA and had a professional career. So, yeah, I think James Lister is number 1 that comes to mind. And then I think these two guys, the next 2 I'll say, are kind of interchangeable at 2 and 3 for me. So the first one is Donald Cole, played in 2002 and 2003. He was the guy that got the Bearcats to the NCAA tournament for the very first time. Only played 2 years, but in his 2 years here, averaged 17 points and 9 rebounds a game. And he was the one that finally got the team over the top. So it was just a 2-year stint, but he was the star of the team, averaged almost a double-double, was just really incredible. And then the other one is Gilberto Clavel. He was the one that got him back to the NCAA tournament in 2011. I think he averaged 18 and 8 a game during his 2 years. And he's gone on to have an incredible career professionally over in Europe. I think he represented I forget which country it was, in the 3-on-3 tournament that they had a couple of years ago. And he's still playing professionally. So I think those two come to mind, mainly because they were the 2 captains that led teams to their 2 NCAA tournament appearances. And in their 2 seasons here, averaged 18 and 8, 17 and 9 kind of thing. So Lamar might have a little bit more in the scoring department and in the 3-point shooting department, but he doesn't have that NCAA tournament appearance like those 2 guys have. So I think the top 3 is some combination of Lister, Clavel, and Cole. And then Lamar is probably there in 4th, in my opinion.
So you have him top 5.
Yeah, and I think there's an argument for him to be 2, 3, or 4 somewhere in there, but I'd probably slot him in at number 4.
All right, so James Lister, number 1, I think that's pretty obvious. I think that's pretty evident. But you didn't mention Bruce Allen. He's on the top of a lot of these charts, man.
Yeah, no, that's another one too. Yeah,
that's what. So where, like, for me right now, and listen, you by far know far more of the history of this program than I do. I'm looking at it simply from a numbers perspective. I put him top 10 right now.
I think
Closer to the top 5 range. I mean, I've got him probably in the 6-7 range for program.
I think another thing to consider too is we're in the NIL era and transfer portal era, and while Lamar made some money this past year, he could have made so much more money somewhere else, and he decided to stay here for 3 years, which is something not a lot of people do in this day and age. And I think he needs to, I don't know if be rewarded for that is the right word, but I think that's something to take into consideration too, is this is a guy that wanted to be here, chose to be here 3 years. And I think that's really important because we might not see that again for a long time. A guy of his caliber want to stay here for 3 years.
See, I can't jump on board with this. I can't jump on board with that. I first off, one thing I always try to, when I start talking about where someone ranks and they're playing or just finished playing, I'm always very careful to avoid a recency bias because we've watched them, right? Like we know how good they are right now. And that can tend to kind of play a role in our thinking about this. The NIL thing, I just don't know that it's. I mean, I know in Division I it does play a large role, but those to me, it's not everyone's getting the money you hear about, the money they write about on ESPN, right? Like, there's very few that are going to get that money, and so. Era of the transfer portal, man, there's been a transfer portal. There's been a portal for a long time. You just had to sit out a year before you were allowed to play. So, I mean, some of those things because you can't quantify. I'm a quantifier. You know this, man. I got to be able to quantify. This is what that meant to the program.
Well, and I think another thing, too, to consider with Lamar is his very first game as a Bearcat. I think he hit 5 threes and hit the buzzer beater to beat Oklahoma. And I think it was, I'd have to go back and look and see, but I think it was the first win over a Power 4 or Power 5 program in over a decade. And it kind of set the standard for what this program and the expectations have been the last 3 years since that win. And that's one of the more memorable moments that Sam Houston's had in any sport, I would say, in the past decade, is that buzzer beater win at Oklahoma. And so I think he's got one of the most memorable moments in team history, too. Not that that's necessarily quantifiable, but when you think about Lamar Wilkerson, you'll always be able to look back and say his first game was that buzzer beater against Oklahoma, and it kind of set a standard for these past few years.
Maybe we need to have a bit of a dividing line. Pre-Conference USA, when the programs were out of the Southland, and let's face it, it's a different level in the Southland. The Southland is below Conference USA. Yes, that's part of your Division I era. There is a difference.
Yeah.
There is a difference.
Well, and I was going to say, too, Lamar, who's going to the Conference USA championship game, you beat by 12 on the road. So, I mean, it's a pretty big gap.
No, yes. No, it is. It is a big gap. And so when you're talking ranking players, when you're talking big-time Division I era, maybe we call it that.
Yeah.
Lamar is definitely one you're going to remember as having set the standard for the program going forward. Now, when you're talking all-time, I think he slips down that list. He's going to have a place in the program lore, no doubt about it. Now, here's another question I have for you, though. If he comes back next year and he continues, he's only going to get better, in my opinion, right? The numbers are only going to get better as long as he can avoid injury. First off, any insight on the whether he's coming back? I got to put you on the spot with that one. And then second, where could you see him finishing if he comes back and has another fantastic season?
Yeah, I think all indications point towards him going, and most likely professionally. Even if he did move up a level in college basketball to the Power 4 level, the looks he's getting, he's probably still going to make more by going to Europe. He's got a shot at the NBA draft. And so I think all signs point to him leaving, and I would lean towards him going pro because I think he can make a lot of money there pretty quickly. So that's kind of my thought and indication on where it goes. And yeah, if he comes back next year, I think the numbers he could put up would be truly historic. I mean, his numbers this year, especially 3-point shooting, scoring individually, were top 10, 15 in the country. I think he's a guy that could push to average 23, 24 a game. Because if you look at his numbers, especially here in conference play, back half of conference play, he's averaging 25, 26 points a game. And next year, if he were to come back, I would expect his averages to hover around there. So, yeah, indications point towards him probably not coming back, which makes sense just because of his professional aspirations and the opportunities he has there. But if he were to come back, I mean, you're looking at a guy that could maybe be averaging upwards of 25 points a game.
If he were to come back, though, would that help his NBA draft stock? Because here's the thing. Yes, I know he could go overseas right now and play professionally, but that's not where the money is.
If you play in the top one of the two leagues, there's some money there. It just, you got to get up towards the top of Europe.
And is he towards the top of Europe right now? That's the question.
Well, so here's my comparison. I think so. I don't think he's going to get drafted, even though there's been scouts at multiple games over the past few weeks. But I think he's a guy that could play in the G League, or he could play somewhere at the top of Europe. And he reminds me a lot of Savion Flagg's path. And Savion Flagg is playing in one of the top Lithuanian leagues. And I'm trying to pull up what his salary is, if they even have it. But he's playing, I think, in the second or third league in Europe, somewhere out there. And that's kind of the player I think he could be, to where he's playing kind of towards the top of Europe is kind of
okay. So while you look at that, though, I mean, if Lamar were to choose to come back and use that last year of eligibility, would that improve his draft stock enough to make it worth it?
I just don't know how much more you're going to raise it. Even if you're 5 to 7% better than this last year, it's tough to see how much more it will raise it. And Savion Flagg, I just looked it up, is making $4 million in Lithuania this year. So,
I mean, I make like 5, right?
Yeah, just casually.
Yeah, just casual money. That's just, I mean, okay, $4 million. So it's a little more money than maybe I thought was over there, but it's still not the NBA type money. And look, $4 million is life-changing money, no matter how you look at it.
Right. Yeah. So it's a lot of money. And I think I think he's probably a little bit better than Savion Flagg is. And he could make just as much probably in year one. And this is Savion, I think it's his third year professionally. So I think he can make $3 to $4 million kind of out the gate somewhere in Europe.
That would be enough to get Corey Hogue to go.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, not gonna lie. Look, I'm a money guy. You give me money like that, I do not regret. I don't sit here and rag on anyone who takes money.
Right.
Right? Like, why would I?
And that's why I think he's likely to go to the professional route, because there's maybe 3 or 4 guys in college basketball making $4 million, somewhere around there. Even if it's $2 million, there's maybe 10 guys making that much. So,
that's big time money, right? Like that's
right.
big time program money. That's NIL money that Sam Houston will never have, and that's okay.
Right. Yeah. So, and if he has those opportunities somewhere, I hope he takes it, because he deserves it.
That was a great conversation. I think that was a great way to open the show. Want to let people know and remind you that we are a podcast on the Republic of Football Network and an extension of Dave Campbell's Texas Football. Please like and subscribe to the podcast and follow us on the various social media platforms, including Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at March to the Pod. It's all one word. March the number 2, the Pod. When we come back here after this word from our friends over at Eternal Roofing, we're going to talk about women's basketball, and are they achieving those standards that we kind of put in place last week? Eternal Roofing only uses the finest materials in the roofing business while providing an exceptional warranty. Why do they use CertainTeed products? Because they complement any appearance, provide exceptional and reliable strength, and are known for their enduring performance. Here's what Shane Sosa had to say about Eternal Roofing. Taylor and his team are amongst the highest level of professionals. They care about their customers and go above and beyond just doing the job. Give Eternal Roofing a call today at area code 830-251-5673 or area code 936-215-8539 or email Taylor at eternalroofingtx.com. Big thank you to friends and Taylor and company over at Eternal Roofing. They do outstanding work. And look, women's basketball season, by the time you're listening to this, might be over. Might not. We don't know. Right?
We're not fortune tellers.
We are not. This is pre-recorded. Now, if we had our way, they would be moving on and they would beat Liberty. But we don't always get our way. We got to watch the game like the rest of you. But regardless, win or lose, we will get into that again, just like we did with the if Lamar comes back. We'll get into the if they win today, because as soon as you hit the floor, there is always that chance. However small you may believe it to be, it's not 100% that Liberty wins. So yep. There's a chance. So we will discuss that. But the standards that we set last week for the programs about conference records, is the women's basketball, are they meeting the standard? And I think more importantly, because as we talk about this, look, Raven Justice has been here for a while now. She's got a pretty good record, 7 years to look at and to go off of. So let's start getting into some of these questions that Bobby, let's face it, Bobby will have some of these things he's got to look at here after the season is over. And I don't want to put in too much into the Southland years, right? Like the 18 to 22. Here's my problem, Ben. Here's what I look at. When I look at what she's done since 18, when she got there, it's not, if she was meeting the standard in the Southland at 15 wins, 19 wins, a 500-ish conference record, I don't know that she's not meeting the standard that you've moved up a level to Conference USA. You've got 5 wins. You improved in conference this year. You improved overall this year. The roster needs time to catch up, because when you're in the Southland, you're not recruiting the same players you are when you're in Conference USA, but maybe some of those Southland players are still on the roster. Kind of how do you divide that also the last 2 years from the previous 5?
Yeah, I think so. But you have to look back at them a little bit, because I think she did do an incredible job turning this program around quickly, and showed she could do that and has the ability to coach at a high level. But like you said, the Conference USA schedule is a different gauntlet. And I don't know if we're going to get back to that 14-6 kind of season that she had in 1920, which was an incredible year. But you got to see improvement. We saw a little bit of it this year. Is it enough? I'm not too sure. I know injuries played a big factor into that, similar to the men's side. But 2 wins and 5 wins in conference play over the last 2 years, you don't want to have that become the standard. And so can we begin to elevate from 5 wins? Can we get to 8 wins next year? I think if we could see that, I'd feel encouraged. But I'm not 100% sure if we can get there. So we'll see.
And see, I think that's the question, right? Like, I want to see progress. I want to see them moving towards it. The standards for the women's basketball program have never been like it is for men's basketball or baseball, though, or even football.
Right.
It's just not. So we got to take that into account as well. We can't. I know I like to hold people to the same high standard but you got to be working to get to that point.
Yeah, it's a different tone than you had last week, where you wanted to set the same number of wins for both.
No, I do. Remember, I do. And I'm going to, if Raven doesn't get another automatic extra year added on, right?
Yeah.
So this is the conversation I want to have. If you don't meet the standard, these are the conversations we're having. So here's where I would take the conversation right now. We're going to really focus in on the last 3 years. Overall win totals, you can kind of manipulate that by playing some not as good teams. Conference, 2-14, 5-13, 8 seed in the tournament, and a conference win and a win in the conference tournament. As of right now, let's say they lose to Liberty. 2 wins, 5 wins, a conference tournament win this year. Is that enough for you to go, okay, you're on the right track? Let's see how next year goes.
I think I'm leaning that way. I don't think I have a firm opinion either way. But going from 2 wins and not having a win in the conference tournament to having 5 wins and a win and getting into that final 8 in the conference tournament, you elevate yourself from the 10th best program in the league to 7th or 8th, which is progress. Going from 10th to 2nd or 3rd isn't really reasonable, but going from 10th to 7th or 8th, I think is progress. And if you can stay healthy, bring in a nice portal class, can you elevate to 4th or 5th? If you can't, then I think it's time to look at a change. Because if you stay 8th, 9th, 10th in that area, I think you kind of see what the ceiling is under Raven Justice. But if you can elevate to like a 4th, 5th type of finish, I think there's reason for optimism for Coach Justice moving forward.
Okay. We know she didn't meet the standard of 1 automatic year. But if I'm making this call, I'm giving it another year. I give her, because I am understanding that the entire roster and the level of talent you bring in has got to be completely, and that can take 2 to 3 years to really fully transform the roster to get the type of player you need. Another thing of that is maybe after the 23 season, she went, oh, we need a lot more of the better players, right? So you give that some time, some learning. Next year would be year 3. This is where I really need to see more progress of getting up to, let's say you're 8-10, right? Let's say you're 7-11 next year. I think that should be that's achievable. Now, you go out and meet the standard set of 20 wins, well, you automatically get another year anyway. We wouldn't even be having this conversation. Right. But we are, because you have not met that standard. I just feel like one more year is just, it's fair at this point.
I think so too, because of the progress that was made this year. And I know we've been talking about it, but I think they lost 3 games in the final 5 seconds also. So if you can find a way to flip even those 3 games this year, you're 8-10 in conference play right there. So they're close. If ands and buts, but maybe if you improve your roster 3 to 5%, whatever it might be, you find a way to win those games and you're at 8 wins already and you continue to make progress. So we'll see.
That's one way to look at it.
Yeah. And so I think I can definitely see giving 1 more year, and I would be okay with it. I don't have a firm opinion either way. But yeah, 1 more year I think is justifiable, and we'll see where it goes. But if you end up with another 2, 3, 4, 5 win conference season, I think it's time to have a hard conversation probably.
All right. So I, as acting Bobby Williams, I'm looking at this one from a standpoint of this is what you've got to have next year. That, listen, we want to keep striving to get up to that 20-win plateau. That's where we want to be. We want to be up at 20 wins. But next year at this time, if you're sitting here and you're not closer to 500 in the conference, then you haven't shown me that you're ready to go. Like I would make it very clear that this next year is a very warm seat year for that coach.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's fair.
So that's kind of where I stand with it. You know, the other thing I do, if I'm Bobby Williams, I go back and look at those 3 games where they didn't execute late in the game or however it was to lose on last second possessions, and I see how much of that is coaching, how much of that is player experience in those situations, maybe a youth problem. There's different things, but if I look at it and each time it's coaching, then I'm also going to have a little different view about it as well.
Right. Yeah, because I mean, those 3 games make it look very different. That 5-13 can flip very quickly.
If they had not won yesterday, are we feeling the same way today?
I definitely feel a little more optimistic because I think you have started to kind of set yourself apart from maybe the bottom 2-3 teams, which is a good sign because last year you were the bottom team. So to be able to separate yourself from at least 2 or 3 teams, like we said, is progress, but you got to be able to separate from probably at least half the league, in my opinion.
I think with you, it just makes me feel better about another year, right? Like it just makes me feel a little better about now. Listen, if by the time this airs, they beat Liberty, there's no question, right?
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. And then if you beat Liberty, you got a day off and you're in the Final Four of the conference tournament. You never know what can happen.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. All starts with that game against Liberty. You never know. Hey, let's hope they do. I really see. This is the thing. I know. Look, I'm a hater. I'm negative Nancy. I'm all these things. I'm all these things all the time. Negative Nate, however you want to genderize me. But I really do want to see him win. Just when you don't, I'm not as forgiving sometimes.
And one thing, and I don't think either of us would probably pick us to win, but one thing about a conference tournament is there are some jitters going into it. It's a new arena for a lot of people, and you played in this arena yesterday. You got the jitters out, and now you can just go play. I've seen some teams like Delaware, for example, in the CAA, Future Conference USA member. They were the first team to play. They had to go like 4 games to get to the championship, and some of those teams had double, triple buys, and they came in and beat them. I mean, because they knew what it took to win on that floor, and they got the jitters out. So that's also a factor in March for some teams.
There is an advantage to having played yesterday because, like you said, you've already got those first game conference jitters out. You know the arena. There is a disadvantage. You did play, so you're a little more worn down. Back-to-back days, though, for me, for a college athlete, that shouldn't factor in as much as if you were playing 3-4 days straight.
Yeah, 2 in a row, not that big of a concern. It's 3 or 4.
And the way the conference did this, thankfully, it's not that way. This year. So I mean, look, it very well could. Good luck to the Cats. Hope you do. Hey, make a run. Bring us here next week, and we're talking about how you're in the NCAA tournament. I think all of us will be happy.
Yeah, we'll see what happens.
We will see what happens. We're going to come back in just a minute, tell you how you can help out the Cats, how you could support the Bearcats, and then we're going to talk about Conference USA. Is it the most underrated men's basketball conference this year? All of that after we hear from Eternal Roofing. Eternal Roofing is locally owned and dedicated to giving back to the community by supporting local organizations and charities. They are also the winner of Next Door's Neighborhood Faves for 2 consecutive years. And as you know, if you've listened to this podcast, Eternal Roofing is your choice for Christmas lights. They provide premium lights tailored to fit your home, season-long maintenance, and hassle-free removal. Kyle Tatum said, "They're very professional and great quality, on time and clean, and really made me feel like they cared for me and my home." Give Eternal Roofing a call today at area code 830-251-5673 or area code 936-215-8539, or you can email taylor@eternalroofingtx.com. Thank you, Eternal Roofing. Thank you, Taylor. They do great work. Give them a call. It is spring break this week, Ben. And so I have an 8-year-old at home, and I just looked up on the TV, and now captions are on. I don't know how, and I'm not sure how to turn those off. And now I get to go figure out captions after the show.
Gotta love it.
I do, actually. It is fun having him home. By the way, it's also fun having this Hickory Dickory Dock hat. Yes, mouse up the clock with a baseball bat.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. Oh, it's good. I got another good one that I'll bring out next week.
Is that the other one you sent me this week?
Yeah, I got another one. I got a Beach Dogs. I'll be getting another new hat here this weekend. Here. All right. So every year that calendar turns, it comes a day. They say you're a year older. I don't pay any attention to that. I just don't. I don't like those days. I don't believe in those days. I'm still 25. I will always be 25. It was a good age. It's a good age. But I had one of those things where people say, oh, and I'm like, nah. But then they get you things like nice hats. So, maybe.
There you go.
Maybe I should be okay with it a little bit.
Say it's your birthday every day. Get a new hat every day.
No, that's only when I go to the restaurant.
You would be that guy.
Do I look like a guy who passes over dessert? Oh, goodness. Anyway, I saw something yesterday or the other day. Days run together, but it really kind of piqued my interest. And it was talking about Conference USA and in relation to other conferences.
Okay.
Right now, Conference USA is seen as a one-bid league. Am I right about that?
Yeah. On the women's side, it might be a 2, but on the men's side, it's probably a 1.
Okay. American Athletic Conference, 1 or 2 bid league on the men's side.
I could see it being a 2 bid league. It's definitely a 2 bid league if Memphis doesn't win the conference tournament.
Missouri Valley.
That's a 1 bid league with Drake.
Big West.
Ooh. I don't know a ton of the Big West teams off the top of my head, but I would say a 1 bid league probably.
Atlantic 10.
Oh gosh. A10 could be a 2 bid league. If George Mason loses the conference tournament, they could definitely be a 2 bid league.
West Coast Conference.
This year they're probably a 2 bid league, but going forward they're a 1 bid league because they're losing a lot of those schools to the Pac-12.
We're talking about right now. I'm talking about this year.
Yeah, it's a 2 bid league with St. Mary's and Gonzaga. You can maybe throw a Santa Clara in there if they win the conference tournament.
Mountain West Conference.
Oh, that's like a 3 or 4 bid league. They're very good.
What if I told you Conference USA is right in the middle of all those we just mentioned?
Yeah, it absolutely is. And I think the one fault it has is all the teams are 80 to 100 in the net ranking kind of thing. And so when you look at the league as a whole, it's extremely competitive. But they don't necessarily have that one team that really sticks out. Like some of these other conferences do, to where if you're the American and Memphis loses, you get 2 bids in kind of thing. So
here I have on the screen Ken Palm. That's right. Ken Palm statistics for Conference USA, including an all Conference USA, all Ken Palm team, which doesn't have Lamar. So, blow that one off. Anyhow,
come on.
At the bottom there, the ranking of conferences by net rating of a team expected to go 500 in conference play. To me, this is how you judge on Ken Palm the best conferences. Top 4, I don't think you even argue. Top 5, those are in that order. And in fact, I might be a little surprised to see the ACC at 5th.
Yeah, because the Mountain West is incredible, especially at the top.
Yeah. So Conference USA is 9th. They're behind West Coast Conference, Atlantic 10. Then it's Conference USA. Behind Conference USA is American Athletic, Missouri Valley, Big West. Then you get on down to some of those others. Like, look, the WAC is 15th. That just tells you the level that Sam Houston moved up.
Yeah.
The
Southland's
Southland
21.
21st.
And this is
Yeah.
the best. This is the best year the Southland's maybe ever had as far as top to bottom basketball competition, from my view.
Yeah, look, it's not every year they're up there with the Sun Belt. The
Yeah.
Sun Belt's 20th, by the way.
Yeah.
That's crazy. So I think Conference USA is the most underrated men's basketball conference this year, and I believe they should be a 2-bid conference this year.
I think they could be. They are by far the best 1-bid league because they're going to be a 1-bid league. I think they're by far the best 1-bid league. And I said the A10, the West Coast, the Mountain West were all multi-bids kind of things. So they're the best 1-bid league. The problem is it's just, I think Liberty has a shot to possibly be an at-large if they win 2 games and lose in the final. But outside of that, it's just hard to make a case for any of these other teams to be an at-large because they've got 6-7 conference losses in the 9th best league in the country. And so I think that's kind of the fault. It's just everybody eats up on each other in conference play. And you need one of those teams to go 16-2 and then maybe lose in the conference title game. And that's how you become a 2-bid league. But
but see, here's the thing. That means you've got 2 teams dominating. The rest of them get a lot of losses. The Southeastern Conference eats up on each other as well, right? So all these is so to me, and listen, I think you can make an argument up there for a New Mexico State, a Middle Tennessee, one of those teams make a run here to the championship game. I think you can make a very valid argument they should be in the tournament over, let's say, a Texas team that won 3 games in the Southeastern Conference. They're still trying to put them in the dang tournament.
Yeah, it's not great. I think a team like maybe Middle Tennessee, they had a really bad loss to Murray State, but they had some good wins too. They beat Abilene Christian by 25. They beat USF. They beat UAB. They beat Lipscomb. Teams like that, I think could maybe become an at-large team if they weren't going to win the conference tournament. But yeah, it's just tough just knowing what the committee looks like, and they're going to put 10 SEC teams in. So it's just hard for conferences like Conference USA to become a multi-bid league when they're going to put 10 of those teams in, like a Texas or Oklahoma possibly.
Okay, so your opinion, is Conference USA the most underrated men's basketball conference?
I think so, because I think it's the deepest. I just think it's incredibly deep. Like the American has teams that are just awful at the bottom. The A10 has some awful teams. The West Coast has some awful teams. But 1 through 9 this year, I mean, it's just a really, really good conference.
It's not a secret. Yesterday on ESPN Plus, whoever the UTEP announcers were, because that's what they sounded like. No, I'm kidding. Anyway,
they were Liberty. They're the Liberty commentating team.
Okay, so that makes a little more sense. I don't like Liberty anyway. Anyhow, moving on from that. Listening to them yesterday, they were talking how, being the Liberty commentators, that Liberty was not excited to play either one of the teams that came out of that game yesterday. No. That tells you how deep the conference is.
Yeah, 1 through, and you could even argue 1 through 10 because FIU beat Western Kentucky yesterday.
That is true.
It's really anybody could beat anybody on any given night. And that's what makes it so fun, and every team has a shot. I mean, it's just such a deep league.
Okay, so while we have the Ken Palm stuff up here, I want to get into something that I did not expect to see when I was looking at these yesterday, quite honestly, and I think it deserves a conversation. This Sam Houston defense was bad.
Yeah.
Bad. They're bad. And that is a problem, Ben, that when Mudge, who, by the way, Mudge comes in and sits down with Pretend Bobby over here too this year because he didn't make 20 wins. We got to have this conversation, right?
Yep.
I am going to ask him, what are you doing to turn around this defense? And specifically, your defensive rating is the worst in the conference in conference-only stats, which I think is a fair way to look at it. And worse than that, the one that really kind of drives me is offensive rebound. You give up an offensive rebound 30.6% of the time. That is insanely bad.
Yeah, I think there's a couple factors that went into this. One is you didn't have Damon Nicholas the entire season, and I think he was going to be the best on-ball defender in the entire conference. He was the only guy last year that could shut down Isaiah Crawford at Louisiana Tech. And he could guard 1 through 5, maybe 1 through 4, and losing him hurt. You also lost Kean Scroggins halfway through the year. That's a big loss. And then Shek Njai, your freshman 6'10" backup center, doesn't play until halfway through conference play because he broke his wrist before the season. So you lose your backup center. Your third string center is a true freshman who had never played before until halfway through conference play. You lost your best on-ball defender. And Damon Nicholas averaged about 8 rebounds a game last year by himself. And a combination of all that, it just makes it extremely hard for them to be able to defend at a high rate. And I think that number shows it there with the guys that you lost.
So you've got to do something. You got to pick one thing. You got to be good at something.
Yep.
And if you're not rebounding defensively, you better stop 3-pointers. They didn't do that either.
No, and the defense wasn't great all year. And to be fair, it wasn't incredible last year. It was kind of middle of the pack. And then when you bring in losing Kean Scroggins, you bring in losing Damon Nicholas, Shek Njai being out for most of the year, Kean not being there, you end up with a defense that's rated last in the league.
The offense was good. I do want to say that. I want to say the offense this year was pretty solid, even with all the injuries that you mentioned. The thing is, I want to know, I would want to hear from Mudge because, listen, man, defense is how you win. It's how you win. It's how you win in every sport. You've got to play defense. And the defense has got to get better. And that's what I want to know. How are we going to get that defense better for next year?
Well, it starts by bringing Damon Nicholas back, who has another year, and indications point towards him coming back. Obviously, nothing's for sure, but getting him back changes everything. His nickname that he kind of came into last year was Baby Rodman because he's like a 6'4", and he would wear his Dennis Rodman shirt into games a couple times last year. He's 6'4", 6'5", can guard almost everyone on the floor, and is going to be your top rebounder. There was one game last year where I think he had like 2 points and 15 rebounds or something like that. And so getting him back, I think, changes the dynamic of a lot of what this defense can do and what the rebounding situation looks like.
Okay. Now, what about the rest of the players? They got to contribute defensively too.
No, I know. Yeah, it takes a full team effort, and I think it's going to be an emphasis probably in the portal this offseason. We'll see how many spots you have available, but I think defense and rebounding is going to be something you look at to definitely improve on.
No doubt about it. My goodness, this hour kind of flew by.
Yeah, it did.
That was a good conversation. Hope everyone out there enjoyed it. Thank you for listening. And again, thank you for watching. If you're watching us on Facebook or Twitter, thank you for joining us this week. It is pre-recorded. That's why we didn't answer any of your questions or comments live on air. Hope that you have a great rest of your week. Hope the Bearcats win here and they're going to tip off here shortly. Hope they're winning. Hope they win that game. Ben, thank you. Thank you for doing this. And listen, I think I believe I think the listeners will be okay if there are times that we need to do pre-recorded shows some weeks rather than just miss a show.
I hope so. Hopefully they give us the liberty to be able to be flexible.
Hopefully the Cats ring that bell today.
Fan the flames.
Extinguish the flames.
Yeah. A lot of good alliterations going on here.
Need to get rid of those darn flames, man. In fact, how ironic is it that a university started by Jerry Falwell calls themselves the Flames?
We got to.
Well, now it's time to go before I get myself in trouble.
We're signing off.
That's right. That's right. Thank you, Ben. Thank you to everyone listening today. Well, as far as I know, we'll be back next week. What do you have anything that tells me otherwise in the production meeting?
As long as we don't get canceled, I think we'll be back.
As long as I shut up. All right. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Ben. And hey, without you guys listening to this nonsense, we're not even doing it. Until next time, Ben, the women need a big win today. They need to go on through and win this conference tournament. Let's give them some help.
Let's march to a victory today and keep the March Madness going.
God bless General Sam.